Hello, welcome to WD80, the Watford fan channel. Welcome to our post-Derby day win chat. Doesn't get much better than that, Sam. 4-0 at home. It happened a long time ago, and it happened again yesterday. What a win for Watford at home to Luton. Probably up there as one of the best days to be a Watford fan, I think, for a lot of people, certainly for myself. Sam, look, mate, first off, how's it going? Have you recovered from yesterday? Or are you kind of like still on that buzz, like post-win buzz? But I feel like this is kind of like being taken to another level, right? Like the level of adrenaline yesterday was just like off the scale.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think obviously normally 3 points is 3 points, but this just meant so much more yesterday. I think to everyone, every single Watford fan knew sort of the magnitude of that win yesterday. And I feel that I know obviously we go to Wigan next week and we Cardiff as well, but I feel like this really could be a turning point for our season. I feel like everyone's now moving in the same direction. Everyone's sort of, first time I'd felt connected to the team in a long, long time. And it's been a difficult season. We all know it has. We're not going to get too bogged down on the negatives because of how good yesterday was. But it was just an unbelievable day. And I apologise if you can hear any fireworks, by the way. I think it's for Diwali. So have a good one if you're celebrating it. But,
Yeah, Diwali to any of our viewers. Hope you have a great...
I originally thought it was still a few Watford fans out celebrating after yesterday. So,
but rumor has their Slaven Bilic.
No, exactly. So brilliant day, and hopefully it can be sort of the start of something special this season.
Yeah, mate. Well, look, we'll get into your comments today. Thanks to everyone who's watching. Make sure you do leave a like on the video as always. Subscribe if you're new and want to see some more content. It's been a bit of a weird time to be a Watford fan, but we kind of just wanted to talk about this game in isolation, just purely because it was not, for me, Sam, anyway, like this season has been ups and downs. So I think the word to describe this season so far has probably been inconsistent from board to player level. Like it's just been a bit of a hodgepodge. But yesterday was the first time I felt, I think connect is the right word, where the fans, the players, the manager were all singing off the same hymn sheet. And the performance was one of the best I've seen in a long time. In terms of the things you expect to see as a fan. I think particularly the Derby day, right? The passion, the commitment, the hard work, the energy, the desire from minute one. And I think the best place to start, Sam, is that 3rd-minute goal from Keinan Davis. Because if you were going to say before the game, right, a perfect start, it was going to be that. And the finish as well, Sam. Just from your view in the Rookery, it must have popped off after.
It was unbelievable. I think going into the game, I think, as you say, the season's been inconsistent. I don't think we really knew what sort of Watford team we were going to get going into the game on Sunday. Luton were in fantastic form. Credit to their start of the season and the job that Nathan Jones is doing there. And I sort of worried that the players wouldn't really get what this means and wouldn't be pumped up for it. Obviously, the stadium was electric from the first minute yesterday, and it was unbelievable. And I remember, I think Luton might have kicked off the game, and I think we won that first ball in the air, whenever that first long ball was. And I thought it was at that moment, what was it, 30 seconds in or whatever it was. And I don't know what it was. I just thought, what, we're actually on it today. We look up for it. Players were showing thought. Players wanted it. It was a lovely move, and I think Slaven Bilic sort of referenced it as well, the fact that they were working on getting the fullbacks higher up the pitch. The ball was worked out, really well to Hassan Kamara, who put in it was a good ball in, and it was I can't remember if it went over to the other side now, but it was a fantastic finish from Keinan Davis, probably one of the most complete strikers we've had at the club since prime Troy Deeney. It's absolutely brilliant. And I couldn't really see, I didn't really appreciate at the time how much of a good finish it was, because sort of from where I am in the Rookery, you sort of just see the ball in the back of the net. And I originally thought actually it was an own goal of one of the Luton players, just because it sort of, it just looked, you could see Davis's body position was a bit weird. Turns out it was a scorpion kick, and it was just unbelievable goal.
Mate, like, I couldn't actually believe, when I first saw it, I was like, what a finish. And then when I watched it again on the replay, I was like, that is an unbelievable technique as well, like behind him. And I think he put a tweet out today where the club had tweeted saying how have you done that, and or how we're trying to work out how he did that, and he's the same as well. So look, mate, I thought Davis that was, as you said, I think the word you used there, Sam, was complete. For me, that was probably one of the most complete performances I've seen from Watford number 9 in a long time. Like probably going back to maybe like 15, 16, Dini Igalo. I think in terms of what he brought to the team. And I think what was really interesting, Sam, was like when you heard his interview post-match, he mentioned about being up for it today. But what was interesting was, obviously he knew it was a derby, but he had kind of different reasons. And I was kind of digging into it. But basically, when he was playing for Forest last year, they played Luton, and the Luton fans were giving him quite a lot of stick. And I think they were giving him quite a lot of stick after he got injured. And basically, he took that motivation, that hunger, and that desire. And I mean, the guy looked like a man possessed in terms of like his. I mean, obviously, we'll get onto the Joao's goal, but the tracking down, the way he was holding up the ball, bringing others into play. You know, there was times where you looked at the centre backs at Cathcart and Troost-Ekong, and they were playing it quite early into him. There was sometimes you're like, just leave it a little bit before you play it into him, but he like made the most of every single ball. And I feel like in games like that, when you know you're feeding sometimes off scraps, he just brought. It was that focal point, wasn't it?
Definitely, yeah. I think there were sort of 3 elements to his game that I was really impressed with. First of all, was one, striker's instincts, because I think we've seen previous strikers at Watford. Perhaps I look at Andre Gray, for example, take an extra touch, for example, the chance is gone after that. I think that finish straight away was the reason why he probably went. I don't really know how I did that, was because it was without thinking. It was just instinctive what he did, sticking his leg out, getting it into the back of the net. And it's brilliant because we didn't really have that in a while for a while at Watford. I think secondly as well, if I'm comparing him to the best striker in the world at the moment, Erling Haaland, what Haaland does really well is he's able to pick the ball up deep and drive forward with the ball for Man City. And there was a point yesterday, or at least a couple of times, where Davis was able to pick the ball up from the halfway line and just drive directly through the heart of that Luton midfield and the defence as well. He forced a really good save from the Luton goalkeeper, who tips it round the post. I think it's that sheer strength. He's quick as well. He's really quick, which I didn't realise. And the way he's able to hold off defenders, bring others into play is just really, really good to see. And the last thing I'll say about him is that I don't think we're even remotely seeing the best of Keinan Davis yet, because obviously he didn't have a pre-season. I think he's struggled a bit with fitness. Obviously, he came off yesterday injured, and let's hope it's not too serious, because we really need him. I still feel like there's a few more gears that he can go up, and I think we're seeing the start of hopefully a really special striker at Watford.
I think he might be okay, only because when I was looking at the lap of honour after the game, he came back out and came around. And I think if it was really serious, I don't think he would have done that personally. I think it was probably a precaution where he's felt his hamstring. He's like, shit, is this the same one that I've done before? And then he's kind of gone, okay, it's not as maybe bad as the first. This is very much guesswork, by the way, but I don't think he would have come out at the end. Someone said, don't compare early to the best.
Apologies.
Do you know what you mentioned kind of the traits he had? For me, he really reminds me of when Lukaku was at Everton.
Yeah, definitely.
Remember when there was like an inevitability about Lukaku when he got on his left foot and he just like, when he I think he did this sort of like demo with Carragher, and he basically said, like, once I put my arm there, I
remember that video.
Yeah. And like every time I watch him, I think if he turns you on his left foot, I actually don't think there's a defender in the Championship who could stop him, because he's got the momentum. Because as you say, Sam, he's got that. Obviously, his touch is really good, but then if he takes it round a defender, his whole momentum and his power and strength is just like, and he's off. And as you say, because he's got those yards of pace, he's in. Amazing finish. And I think, as you say, Sam, set the tone. In terms of, look, I think there's a few names popping about, but in terms of other players that, before we get onto the other goals and how we play, but was there any other players that you thought this idea of setting a tone in the derby really like hit that mark?
Yeah, there are 2 players who sort of jump up straight out, at my head, who I've given, I think have been poor in the last few weeks, which are Hamza Chowdhury, first of all. I think has been poor in the last few weeks. And secondly, Edu Kiembe, I think didn't have the best start to the season, to be honest with you. Yesterday, they were absolutely unbelievable. From minute 1, they were winning challenges. They were getting stuck in. Kiembe was getting his head up, bringing the ball forward, something which I've, criticised him for in the past, because I feel like at times he's a bit too sideways backwards, if you know what I mean. But I thought they were phenomenal yesterday. I thought they set the tone in terms of winning tackles, coming back, helping defensively, trying to get forward as much as they could. And I thought they were both absolutely brilliant yesterday.
Yeah, I agree. I think, as Louis says in the comment section, that was Kiembe's best game in a Watford shirt. And I think actually Millwall was probably one of his worst.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like wrapping your head around the fact that you can go from one performance to another. I know it's a different context and it's different opponents, it's a different occasion, but the point is, I think that kind of sums up where we probably are as a team at the moment in terms of consistency. But I think Chowdhury was almost that ideal player you wanted in that sort of game, because what he did so well is he covers so much ground. But he was someone, I think you're bang on in terms of setting the tone. In the first 10 minutes, I think there was one tackle he made running towards the rookery, and then everyone started singing the Chowdhury chant. And then there was another one about a couple of minutes later where he won a free kick, and you thought they're the sort of tackles you need to win, particularly when they get to that point of the pitch as well, because ultimately Luton were kind of limited in that first chance, that header, weren't they, from where Batman came out rushing out.
Yeah.
And he felt, right, if that had gone in, that could have been a really a pivotal moment. But bar that, I think the first half, you look defensively, I don't think we really had to worry a lot because we defended so well.
Definitely. I think the one thing I would say about Kiembe and Chowdhury, I thought at one point in the second half, they did get a bit too deep. So when it was still 2-0 before we got that third goal, I thought we were too deep and at times looked a little bit open, because I feel like the Luton midfielders, defenders had so much time just to pick up space, move the ball forward. And, they had that corner, which they probably should have scored from at the back post. And I'd say in the first half as well, I'd say the only player who I'm a bit met towards yesterday was Daniel Batman. Obviously, clean sheet, did well. Didn't really have the save to make, though. But I just don't think... He started the season so well and was absolutely brilliant. Some of the saves he made, but I just don't feel like he's really filling anyone with too much confidence at the moment. There was that Cruyff turn in the first half, which obviously looks amazing when you pull it off, but my heart was in my mouth there.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Wow. There was obviously as well, there was that moment where he came out to try and get that cross and the ball sort of looped over him. And that could have ended up anywhere. I thought when the ball hit, what's that striker called again?
I forgot.
Yeah, when it sort of hit his head and I genuinely thought it was going in there. So I don't think Batman was sort of filling anyone with too much confidence, and I think it's probably
Morrison Adebayo.
Adebayo. Yeah. I was going to say Awoniyi, but he's the Nottingham Forest striker, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I thought Batman was the only one who was a bit off it yesterday, but clean sheet, so can't complain too much.
Yeah, I think, and credit to Bilic, I thought he got the balance of the team bang on yesterday. I think when we came into this season, Sam, I think we all wanted entertaining football with this sort of personally, I don't want to speak on other people, but I kind of want this entertaining football, but with this idea of we know our shape, we know we're going to have to defend at times and kind of ease a bit of pressure, etc. I thought yesterday was probably one of the best performances I've seen in the Championship from Watford team. Yeah. I think in terms of the balance we had between defence and attack, the intensity we played at, there was a couple of times in the first half where I thought, got to be careful, because we kind of sensed blood, didn't we? I think in that first half, you looked at the way we played, and we were playing at such a tempo and intensity that we were basically just cutting through Luton's midfield. I mean, JP literally was waltzing through players like it for fun, and then did that in the second half as well.
Yeah.
But there was a couple of times where you're like, right, let's just have a couple of men back just to protect it and just keep it balanced. But on the whole, you look at the performance, I think particularly in the second half, and I think this is where credit to Bilic comes in. I felt really controlled in the second half. It didn't feel at any point we were really going to let it slip. And also, I think you've got to remember the fact that the nerves in these sort of games as well. The players would have known. I think every player, they mentioned they had a pre-match meeting, didn't they, the night before? And on the day, they knew the importance of this fixture, the first in-person M1 derby in 16 years. It meant a lot to the supporters. You could tell by the atmosphere. And the point is, I thought they managed the emotions of the game, Sam, really well. I don't know how you saw it, but it felt like the leaders in that dressing room, particularly the likes of Cathcart, just kept the rein on everything.
Definitely. I think there's a clear link here between sort of what feels like turning points in seasons and player meetings, because I look back to 2 years ago, we got promoted. And I remember we heard about that player meeting that was called after that 0-0 draw against Coventry. And we went on to beat Bristol City 6-0. I don't know if they don't do this, but I don't see why they don't do these sort of player meetings every week before every game, because it genuinely seems to work. I know it probably, if you do it every week, it might not have the same effect, but, there seems to be a real... I've criticised the lack of leaders that I felt in the dressing room. I felt we really lacked leadership this season, but it seems that a core group of them, Cathcart, as you say, William Troost-Ekong, Dan Gosling, who was absolutely fantastic yesterday, were really able to get across to the rest of the team what this meant. And I felt that really translated on the pitch.
100%. I think Tommy sums it up perfectly in the comment section. Big shout out to Dan Gosling. Left frozen out for a long time, then comes in and plays out of position. Obviously, did that interview at the start of the season, and you felt that when was Gosling's chance going to come? He was going to be a more rotational player. I think what he's shown is he can do a really good job at right back, and he's done absolutely magnificently. I think when you look at a player that you want in the team, I think we mentioned this at the start of the season. I think Gosling in a championship squad that's looking to go for the playoffs or promotion, you want him in there, because I think everything he did yesterday in terms of performance, the way I think the best word to, I said it earlier, but the best word to describe the Gosling performance was probably controlled aggression. Because you felt he was aggressive, but you never felt that he was going to chuck in a silly tackle. He wasn't going to do what Luton did. And you just couldn't. I think that was probably the thing you'd say about Gosling's performance, because ultimately Luton would have targeted him. A player who's obviously played at right back before, but he's out of position. Not getting on, but he's not the quickest of players. They would have 100% targeted him, and he barely gave their attackers a kick. So, big shout out to Gosling. I think let's just go through the goals quickly before we get into some more performance shouts. But question here from Porgehead. I think I pronounced that correctly. What's Gosling's role once Ngaki is fit, though? Don't see him starting in the midfield, especially once Cleverley is back.
I'm going to say this. I don't know if it's a bit of a hot take, but I know he's been at right back now for 3 or 4 games. He's probably had 2 A's been brilliant, 2 A's been a bit meh. So against Norwich, he was good. Yesterday, he was good. Against Millwall, he wasn't good at all. I don't rate Jeremy Ngaki personally. I don't rate Mario Gaspar. I think Dan Gosling might be our best right back. And it's mental that I'm sat here saying this, coming off the back of a transfer window when we were desperate for a right back, or Rob Edwards was, at least after Kiko left. And he's no Kiko Feminier. He's not going to get up and down the pitch. He's not going to be making overlapping right back, making overlapping runs. But I do feel like he's probably our best right back. I'm not sure if anyone wants to say in the comments, who they'd start out, probably Gaspar and Ngaki or Gosling, and could throw Craig Cathcart in there as well, probably, who they'd start. But for me, Gosling is our best right back.
Yeah, I think so. I think he has to stay for now anyway. Just Anthony sums up really well. He's basically our Milner.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the best way of describing Dan Gosling, because he can play in a number of positions. And when you chuck him in to do a job, more often than not, he does do the job. So it just shows how important having a player like that in the squad is. Let's have a little look through your comments. Let us know what you think about Gosling, keeping him at right back for the foreseeable. Watford FC 1881. Keinan Davis only had a pre-season. Was only 7 aside, suffered with illness, had some family issues to deal with, and has still been amazing. Show how good of a player he is. Ben says the narrative fear going into the game was that Luton are on the way up while we're on the way down. This result suggests that there's still considerable daylight between us. I think it was a good reminder to those players of how good they can be.
Yeah,
they turn up. I mean, Sam, we mentioned the defence, but particularly going forward as well. You look at the front attacking players of Joao Pedro. I thought Sem was excellent.
Yeah.
Sarr was really good. And then obviously Davis. And that 4, I think when you look at the league, when they're playing at their best, I don't think there's a better 4 in the division, if I'm honest. If they play to the level they can play at, I mean, they were just tearing Luton.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be more than 4 if we're honest.
Definitely. I thought also, you got the likes of Yasser Asprilla as well to come on. He probably should have scored. Vacuum Bayo, I thought, came on and did a brilliant job as well. And I think he's someone who's gone slightly under the radar, is actually, because I was one who criticised the signing, but he's actually proving to be quite useful with his goal contribution so far. But, I think it's terrifying going into a championship season with Keinan Davis, who's proven. You have Joao Pedro, who we turned down ridiculous money for in the summer. Sarr, who cost us 40 million. Ken Sema, who is brilliant in the championship, works his absolute socks off. When they're all, they say, singing from the same hymn sheet, I think that they're unstoppable. And we could have more 4-0s this season. But I just hope that the reason I say turning point is because the players have now seen that they can do it, particularly on the big occasions like in a derby like that. It's now going into Wigan, going into Cardiff, going into Coventry and Reading. Can they translate that again further? Because otherwise, I know this result meant so much more than the 3 points, but in terms of the league table, still not great for us, still not pretty, and we have to work our way up there.
Yeah, that's a really good point on the league table, because I was having a little look at it, and we're now only 1 point behind Luton, which is kind of mad to think, because I think when you look at both of the starts, if you were a neutral, you'd probably go, well, Watford have been below par and Luton have been above par. Yet we find ourselves pretty much the same point.
Yeah.
And I think that shows the levels we haven't got to yet, which is kind of, it's a weird dynamic, Sam, but for me, it kind of gives me encouragement in the sense that I know that if we can, and it's a big if, right? But if we get a bit of consistency going in this division under a manager who has got a team up before, and under a manager who, let's be honest, is a really good manager for the level. I think if you look at his track record, what he's bringing to the team, the way he speaks. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw his post-match interview after the Norwich game. He basically broke down Sarr's game to an inch of its life and said he's been playing in the wrong position, and then put him on the left and he looks like a completely different player, which is mental to think that we haven't played a guy who plays on a left for his country and is really, really good. And we've never played in that. It's bizarre. But anyway, the point is, he was kind of saying how, like, he was kind of saying with Sarr, actually, that he drifts out of games too easily. Like, he should be demanding more from himself. And I think that's absolutely bang on. That's what we've been saying for a while. And I think for him to come in, identify what are the, not issues, but the things that can be improved in the squad, I think says a lot about his coaching level. But
yeah, definitely. And just on that as well, I think it's definitely worth saying, if anyone's seen the under-21s team for tonight, I think that's definitely a Slaven Bilic call, trying to get people's fitness up and getting them match fit. Should we run through that team for tonight, because it's quite interesting.
Let's go for it, mate. I've got it up here. So Slaven Bilic has obviously pulled a few of the guys who were either on the bench or not in the squad yesterday, and they're playing QPR tonight at the Power Day Stadium. So this is the lineup. This is under 21s football. Let's have a little read through. So we've got Angelini in goal, who's obviously the third choice keeper. Ryan Andrews right back. James Morris, who's featured a couple of times. Manning, and then you've got Abbott. But these are the kind of bigger names from the squad so far. Matty Pollock, Joe Hungbo, Deli Bashiru, Bayo, Espria, Kalu are all playing tonight. And obviously
Bayo scored, by the way. We're 1-0 up in that.
Bayo scored. So Bayo, Espria, Kalu all came on yesterday.
Yeah.
And they're being put in. And I think actually that's a really good move from Bilic, because basically what he's saying is get them fit and you're going to play a part this season, which is a good sign. And also it's a good sign that the guys, particularly maybe the guys who might have not seen themselves playing in that game, have actually agreed to play in it. I know that sounds a bit of a simple concept, but like, ultimately, sometimes you get, I think we've had it before with players who kind of like refuse to play under 21s and stuff like that. So to have senior players playing in that game is a really good sign for me anyway. Let's have a little look, Caroline, you bang on. Need to ensure that we carry this performance and attitude forward into the Wigan game. Sam, one man I wanted to touch on, I know you are a really big fan of him after what he's been through the last couple of seasons, and obviously getting on the score sheet yesterday, William Troost-Ekong. I saw your tweet yesterday. He liked it as well. What a man.
Yeah.
Where do we start? We'll get into the levels of shithousery in just a moment. But in terms of his performance, just kind of dissect why he was a candidate for man of the match, wasn't he? In terms of,
definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think with William Troost-Ekong, we have to sort of cast your mind back to probably around this time last year. And he was having a really difficult time. He had obviously that mistake away at Leicester where he ducked for the ball, and I think James Maddison went on to score. He had that nightmare away at Brentford where he conceded that penalty in the 92nd minute or whatever it was. Watford fans were, I'd argue, scapegoating him. To be honest with you, there was pictures on social media of fans ripping up his shirt and that sort of thing, and it was so poor. And because of that, he came off social media for a bit. His comments are still off. So he's clearly, from that, he's a play, I think was probably affected by everything that went on. Yeah, I think he's always remained a leader in here. He probably could have left in the summer if he really wanted to push for a move. He stayed around. He's got Watford blood in him. I think it's something like what his father-in-law grew up as a Watford fan, and he's always been aware of of the football club. And because of that, he was so tuned in for the derby as well. And it was probably one of his best performances in the Watford shirt as well. He looked so assured, particularly with the ball at his feet. I read a piece last week by Andrew French. He's actually one of our best passers on the ball when that was a weak link exploited by other teams in the past. I think that goal for me, if I could have picked a player to score yesterday, it would have been him. because I just think, the celebration as well, I think was just an outpour of everything that he's been through over the last couple of years. And we have to talk about that moment as well, after the red card, waving him off the pitch was just unbelievable.
Oh my world. I completely agree with you, Sam, by the way. I think you're absolutely bang on. And Tommy, I think, in the comment section, he is a confidence player and he needs an arm around him. There is a player in there. You don't captain your country when you're rubbish.
Yeah, and I think that's what our responsibility is as fans now, because I think he's clearly a player who was affected by abuse and that sort of thing. Obviously, it helps as well. Someone said he looks a lot more assured next to Craig Cathcart as well, rather than other players. But I think he is a player that as fans we need to sort of put our arm around him and support him, and I think we'll see the best out of him.
100%. Nick G says, I will never say a bad word about Troost ever again. Charlotte, imagine being William Troost-Ekong and going home to the missus in-laws if we had lost yesterday. And us, he didn't have to. And just to cap off what was a really solid, really good performance. Solid wouldn't have been the correct word. Really good performance from Troost. He then goes and has the the wave. So, mate, that is probably the best meme in Watford Twitter history.
Amazing.
That's going to be used just constantly. Do you know what? Just a word on Cathcart. I think I'd go as far to say he's probably the most underappreciated player in this Watford squad, to be honest, because the difference when he's not in the team and when he is in the team is just like chalk and cheese. At this level, a really, really good centre-back to have. I just think the level of calmness he brings, the leadership qualities, he's not the loudest shouter, but he's in the right position. He does everything he needs to do. And he was someone who, you could tell by his performance, he knew the occasion. There was a couple of times where it was just a bit of a harder tackle. He was just getting a little bit, like, you could just tell with the player when they're just on it. And the two centre-backs, I thought, didn't give Luton a sniff. Absolutely. Yeah. And you could tell by the end of the game, they were pretty frustrated because they literally hadn't had any opportunities. And that was down to, obviously, the protection from the two midfielders, but also the two centre-backs had marked them so well out the game that they didn't really have a kick.
Definitely. There was a point in the first half as well where it was one of the moments where Batman made that mistake where he came out too early. I thought slightly, I know we've praised Gosling. I thought we were giving them too much time to cross the ball into the box. There's about a 5-10 minute period when that happened, particularly down Kamara's side. But the two centre-backs were just winning everything in the air. And winning, the Luton attackers hardly got a sniff aside from that header. So it was brilliant performance from both of them.
I actually think Cathcart's the type of player. I think I agree with Nick that he just lacks concentration to be at the top level. But in terms, I actually think the Championship suits Cathcart because he's always in the game. Yeah. Like in the Prem, sometimes teams would keep the ball for so long, and the defenders wouldn't really. I don't know how to explain, but the defenders wouldn't really have to do a lot. They'd just be like shuffling back and forth. I think Cathcart benefits from getting touches on the ball, actually being involved in duels. Like he's then switched on if he does that, and if he starts well, he normally has a good game. I can't remember a time where Cathcart has started well and played really badly. That makes sense.
Definitely.
He started badly and he just carries on.
Yeah, definitely.
The Southampton game when Shane Long scored, that was a perfect example.
No, exactly. And I think as well, when Cathcart starts well, it's a sweeping statement because obviously we have lost games like that, but I think he just makes the defence play well as well because he just calms everyone down. He relaxes everything. Yeah. So, he's massive for us.
So a couple of comments. David says, Cathcart is a great servant to Watford. Quietly gets on with it. He gets my support for sure. Absolutely. Ian says 19 people out of 83 watching this. It's a good stream. Really appreciate it. And thumbs up. What does everyone else think? Let us know in the comment section. VJ, Surin, how's it going? What's happened to our defence? They look good. And Anthony says, what pleased me about our strong challenges was that they were all within the rules of the game. Says a lot about our players. Wish I could say the same about Luton. Now, moving on to the third goal, Joao Pedro, Sam. Now, we kind of picked out a few players that a few key players, but the man of the match, the manscaped man of the match was Joao Pedro, and the guy should not be playing at this level. It's actually a joke.
Joke. Yeah, in terms of the best technical players in the Pozzo era, I think he's arguably in the top three. You could argue he is probably the best technical player we've had in the Pozzo era as well. I just think there was that moment yesterday after about 10-15 minutes. I've watched the video about so many times where the ball was fizzed at him, and he just flicks it around the Luton defender and runs around the other side. And we nearly scored from it as well. And obviously there were those sort of mazy runs as well, where it was getting around 5 or 6 players, evading the challenges. And he got clattered a couple of times as well. And he's so good. It's illegal how we put him in this league. Just such a good player.
He shouldn't be playing in the Championship. Like, two things. Number one, if you're on Twitter, go and check out Lou Ornssssssss's compilation that he made of his performance yesterday, and it'll remind you how good he was yesterday. I thought that was a special performance from Pedro. Number one, because a lot of what we do well going forward is like pretty much through him. Obviously, Davis was bringing other people into play, but it's no good if someone then can't pick the ball up and drive and play it into wide areas. Ultimately, he was the one who was involved in pretty much everything good we did yesterday. Even the one time where he picked up the ball on the left of the 18-yard box in front of the rookery, went past 4 players, then just drove the whole length of the pitch and played in Sarr. And Sarr should have done better with the cross, but I think that kind of summed up his game. He was getting on the ball, he was being brave in tight areas, taking people on, being aggressive, being physical, and just the technical ability was like another level yesterday. And you could just tell, like, I'm sure the Luton fans were really happy to witness that performance, because it was like it wasn't a performance of a Championship fixture anyway.
No, definitely. I think as well, I know we've spoken about leaders. I actually think Joao Pedro is a leader in his own way. I think he's one of those players, as you say, he'll pick the ball up from deep. He's always desperate for the ball. He always wants it. And I think he's just able to get other players involved as well. I think his sort of level of performance, not just yesterday, but many times this season as well, I think, a lot of players can learn from Joao Pedro.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. Charlotte says, good to have JP back. A cool head in the unexpected situation. Their goalie passes it straight to them. To him. Other less classy players might have blasted that wider over the bar. Really good point. His touch, if you actually watch it again, his touch is really good there.
Yeah.
Because he put it out in front of him. It gave no chance for the defender to come back across.
Definitely.
So nicely. And actually, shout out to Davis, because it was his running that put the keeper under pressure. And I think he didn't realise how quick Davis was. And obviously the keeper completely messed it up. And then moving on to the fourth one, Sam, which is like, at that point, at 3-0, you're like, it's game done. Especially because that was kind of like at the 57th minute. So it's just before, with half an hour to go. It would have been an enjoyable half an hour. But even if Luton had scored 1, you would have been like, oh. But when it goes to 4, you're like, that last 10 minutes is just absolute joy. And obviously, it's not the red card. But I think Sarr deserved his goal, didn't he, yesterday, based on his performance? And I think based on his performance against Norwich as well, where he pretty much set up 2 of the goals pretty much. He deserved his goal. And he looks like a different player on the left, Sam. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, definitely. I think he, as you say, he's done so well there for Senegal in the past, that it's quite surprising that we've never seen him in that position before. We've seen him on the right, we've seen him up front, but Slaven Bilic, putting him in that position, recognizing that he's so good in that position is, it's a masterstroke from him. And the way that we're able, he cut inside for the goal as well onto his right foot, sort of bent it into that far corner. It was just such a good finish. And as you say, I think while at times I don't think he probably had the ball as much as he wanted to yesterday compared to the likes of Sema, Pedro, Davis, who had more of the ball than Sarr, I think he worked so hard. There was a moment I remember where Luton sort of turned the ball over in the half that we were attacking, and he sprinted back. It was Sarr sort of at full pelt pretty much, trying to get back, help out with not Dan Gosling, with Hassan Kamara. It was just brilliant to see. And as Laura says there, I think yesterday he looked happier as well. He was smiling. You could see the passion with the celebration as well. So really happy for Sarr. But as I say, with this Watford team as a whole, it's not been consistent enough from him because, for example, against Mill, I thought he was really poor. So it's about him getting a run of form together and really kicking on.
So I said to Andrew after the game, Andrew French, I wanted to say a big thank you to the Watford fans. They created a great atmosphere, but more importantly, they gave us the confidence to be brave. And I think that's a really fair point because ultimately I think there was a lot made of the game before it happens. Obviously, with the derby day, there's all the noise going around it from both fans, how important it is, what this means for the season, etc. I think actually having the first one at our place was a nice touch, really. I think after Millwall, I thought we couldn't play as badly as we did, but I didn't know if we'd turn up to the level that Luton turned up, but we completely surpassed that.
Yeah.
And I think actually the atmosphere created was like, Sam, it's fair to say that's probably one of the best atmospheres I've heard at Vicarage Road. I'm trying to think of on par, as you said. I think you mentioned the Palace quarter final when we got to Wembley. That's up there. But I think in terms of the full 90 minutes, I mean, every stand was pretty much on its feet for the large majority. And obviously the early goal helps that, doesn't it? Because it sets the tone. But
Definitely.
I think all the fans knew that everyone was just connected yesterday, I felt. There was no...
It was, definitely. I just think yesterday, just as a whole, I just think, I was so nervous going into it. I'd sort of resigned myself to a poor performance and a defeat based on what we've seen so far this season. I just didn't think the players would get it. I wake up, I see the rain is just absolutely chucking it down. It's so miserable. I think Adam Leventhal put a video up. It was 11 a.m. in the morning. It was pitch black pretty much, and the floodlights were on. It was just ridiculous. It was surreal to look at. But it was pretty much as the game started, the sun came out. All four stands were absolutely electric, and it just came together and it was perfect. I just think everything about it was just amazing. The performance was so good. Obviously, that red card was almost like the cherry on top as well, and it was just everything about it was just perfect yesterday. One of my, let's forget about the atmosphere, but it was just one of my favourite Watford games I've ever been to, just for who it was against, the quality of the goals. Every player gave 110% and tried their, they were playing out of their skin, all of them. And, hopefully they were given a well-earned lie-in this morning by Slaven Bilic before we have to go again against Wigan.
Yeah, exactly. Troost did say after the game that there was a bit of a party atmosphere. Well, it wasn't a bit, it was a party atmosphere in the change room. And it was the zone, because I'd imagine the pressure leading into that week was pretty intense. And Nick says, before we're going to wrap up, just a final few comments. And Nick G says, I've said it for a long time, Sarr's wasted out on the right. Give him and JP license to interchange and be fluid in between and down the side of KD7. What a guy, by the way. I genuinely think if we've got the option to get Davis for 15 million. Is that an obligation if we go up?
I think if we go up, it's obligation. If we don't go up, it's an option.
I mean, he deserves the way he's playing at the minute.
Yeah, and there's still, as I say, there's still a few more gears to go up as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think if we get the Davis that we're seeing at the minute, that 15 million is looking cheaper by the week.
Yeah, definitely.
And the only thing I've got against, not him, but like against that deal would be just his injuries.
Yeah, definitely.
Just making sure we keep him fit, because if we keep him fit, it'll get you goals. And I think fair play to Forest fans, they did say that before he joined, that you're getting a really good one here. So
definitely.
Long may it continue, and hopefully he'll be back for Wigan. Charlotte says the fans have waited 16 years for the chance to see us play Luton at home. The early goal just set fire to the whole game. Absolutely.
Brilliant,
it was just beautiful. It absolutely was. Ben Smith, I love Troost yesterday, by the way. Him and Craig revving everyone up pre-match was a good sight. They made me feel a lot more relaxed. I agree. Absolutely agree, Ben, because it kind of just made you realise that the players do get it and they're feeling the same emotions that we're feeling, which has sometimes been lacked, I think, over the last couple of seasons. And that's why I probably made it a little bit more sweet, because after the relegation, you felt there were some players at the club who just didn't want to be here. They didn't get it. You felt there was the players out there all understood what they were getting themselves signed up for. Sam, final comments. Your player of the match, because it went to Pedro, but I think it's fair to say there was a lot of options you could have picked.
Yeah, you could argue for pretty much anyone out there. I think the two, I'll say my second and third options, simply for the way that they surprised me for how good they actually were. Well, first of all, Edu Kiyembe was brilliant yesterday, as we spoke about, and also Dan Gosling for putting in another great shift at right back. But I spoke about already, my man of the match was William Troost-Ekong. Simply, not necessarily for the isolated performance, but for the goal, for the lead up, for those last, the last year, difficult year he's had, for the clear leadership he showed. For me, my man of the match was William Troost-Ekong.
Oh, love it. Let us know
who's yours, Jacob.
I think I probably would be. Oh, that's actually really tough. I would say. Oh, I was going to say Pedro, but if we're not picking Pedro just because the club have picked him or whoever, I think Pedro's the level he produced yesterday was special. Like, he was different gravy. But I think for what he brought to the team, I think Davis was absolutely phenomenal. I honestly, he was on for 70 minutes, and I think you couldn't have asked for a better striker in that sort of game. For that, in terms of what he brought to the game, his build-up play, his hold-up play, the way he brought others into play, and then the fact the goals joke. He set up the Joao Pedro goal with his pressing. He did all the hard work off the ball. Yeah, I just thought Davis was a complete performance from a number 9. And I think it also goes up in terms of the fact that I haven't seen that before. As I said, I think since Troy, I haven't seen a performance like that. Sema, that's a really nice shout from Nick. Player of the season for me as well. Close though, a lot of candidates. I think Sema has been the unsung hero without a doubt. Actually, I think people recognise it, but I think yesterday probably is more of an unsung hero because there were so many good performances. Ben Smith goes Davis for me, but Hamza, Chowdhury, and Gosling definitely with shouts. Joao is just better than everyone else. Charlotte, anything to say on the ref? Bobby Madley, I thought saw some comments from Sam praising Bobby Madley's performance. He did seem to handle a potentially tricky match really well.
Brilliant, yeah. He let a lot of things go in the first half, which was good because I think it allowed the game to flow. A lot of 50-50s, I think he just let them go because obviously it's a derby and you're going to have stronger challenges. And obviously he got the red card correct as well because you can't legislate for that.
That was a shocking
awful tackle.
If Sema's legs planted there, actually could have been.
I thought particularly the way that Sema. I mean, I think first of all everyone was sort of just looking for Sema, make sure Sema was okay first of all. But I just think that, the way he went down, it was almost like, I thought for a second that it was proper serious injury. It's good that he got up and managed to get on with it, but it could have been a leg breaker. But that's Bobby Madley. I mean, I saw a picture on Twitter after of him in KFC, and it was a well-earned KFC as well. So fair play to him.
What a man. What a man. We're going to finish on this one. David Robinson, the whole team were fantastic, and Bilic is a revelation. And I forgot to mention Davis's celebration was absolutely... Just what was it? Did you give it that? Oh, unreal. Sam, it's been a pleasure. As Jury says, Troost-Ekong Cathcart, also happy Diwali. Happy Diwali to all the people who are celebrating, who are watching, all the subscribers, etc. I hope you have a fantastic time. We'll be back next week. Sorry for the little delay. I think we picked a good one to come back on. Watford 4, Luton 0. The M1 is ours. Take care, everyone. See you later. Up the Hornets.